Hi.
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 Hello.
I'm curious about
Building open, authentic, loving relationship.
I'm curious about jealousy.
I'm curious about polyamory.
Does it just mean that you're fucking all the time?
How can I tell my parents that my partner is already married?
I'm curious about
How do you know when you're too busy to have another relationship?
I'm curious about dominant and subordinate relationships.
I'm curious about sexual health.
How can relationships evolve with people as they grow and change?
But hold on, there is a song that's like da, 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 isn't it?
That's a song, right? Da, 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 da. That's what that sounded like. Da, na, 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 na. And maybe it's Beatles. I think it's the Beatles.
Oh no, I definitely wasn't. I wasn't singing the Beatles. I think it was more like a nursery rhyme, like da da da. Da. It's like I have. Oh, it's like I love you, you love me, we all.
Oh, that's like,
cream.
isn't that like Barney or something? No, that's
it's like a kid's song.
I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. Is that it?
Exactly. I was thinking, exactly. I was thinking that. Yeah, I was like, I have me, I have you. We are recording a podcast now. Hi, welcome to the Curious Folks podcast. This podcast is for those who challenge the status quo in love, sex, and relationships. My name is Effy Blue.
And I am Jacqueline Misla. And on today's episode, Effy and I are going to be talking about sex as a hobby. Sex is beautiful, it's romantic, it's hot, it can be deeply intimate, and it also can be a fun thing for you to take on as a hobby. And I have been thinking about hobbies, actually, because sometimes my daughter and my partner will tell me that they are bored. And that is not a concept that I understand. I mean, I certainly know what bored means. And I envy them, but I am never bored, meaning I always have something to do. And so I am wondering if you ever get bored, Effy.
I definitely do get bored, but I feel like we're talking about different things. Like when I hear you say that, I imagine that you're getting bored. I imagine that you're thinking like, oh, I'm bored. I have nothing to do. And you're like, what? Are you out of your mind? I have a list the size of my,
Yeah, that is the exact conversation that happens.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. I can do anything. So yes, I get bored, but never from not having something to do. Because similar to you, like there's like a million things I can do. I can also like invent things to do like forever. I just get bored of the thing that I'm doing. And I have very low tolerance to that. Like I can get a very low tolerance to boredom, which is a part of my ADD. But it's like once I'm bored with a thing, with a person, oh God, help us all when I'm bored with a person. Like, I'm sorry. It's not you, it's my brain. So I feel like we're talking about two different boredoms.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's fair. Because I think in those terms, I probably use words like restless or distracted. Like if I'm doing something that I no longer feel engaged in, then I will likely, instead of saying I'm bored, I will likely say I am feeling restless or I'm feeling distracted. But then I also feel like there's something to do in my mind. So, for example, when I was visiting you this past week, there were often times where people were speaking a language other than English. And I did not know what people were saying. And I could have just been sitting there bored. At some point you asked me, you're like, are you okay? Are you bored? And I was like, no, this is great. I just like went into my brain and like took out a brain file of thoughts and was like, now you can think about this. And I was just like daydreaming about something, or maybe I was trying to problem solve something for work. But I feel like I always have access to something.
Have you ever been trapped at doing something that is boring you? Like typical example, like you're stuck in a meeting, you have to be engaged with the meeting, you got to take your notes, you got to like, but like the experience that I have, I describe it as my brain claws the inside of my skull and is just like, get me out of here. And I have to be like, come on now, brain. You need to like settle down. A few more minutes. Is true. Like, let's just stay in here. Let's just keep connected. And then this could be a meeting. It could be a book that I have to read because I'm just like, I need the information. I sometimes get bored of eating. Like, if it's a big meal and I've been eating the same thing for like, by the time I've like taken my like 10th forkful, I'm like, I'm so bored. So that's what that's my experience of boredom.
Yes, that is true. I've had those experiences. And I think that I try to then task switch. So I don't stay in that moment long, which is maybe why I don't feel it so much. Because even if I'm in a meeting or something, then I will, because it's now all virtual. When it wasn't virtual, I would just pull out a piece of paper and just start working on something else. But virtual, now I can work on something else. But I don't know. There's something about when people say to me that they feel bored, it feels less like mind crawling, like mind scratching. What you were describing makes it like I physically put my nails into my own skin because I was like, I have to get out of this situation. That feels like torturous. Boredom to me, maybe I'm just picturing it different. Feels like laying about on the couch, like kind of mopey and like, like whatever sounds that, whatever words go with that sound of like, I have nothing to do. It's so boring. That doesn't feel like things clawing out.
Yeah. No, I hear you. This is what I mean. Like we were talking about this earlier. Like I do think there are like two types of experiences that we're calling boredom, but they're different experiences. Yeah. Like this thing of like, I have nothing to do. I haven't experienced that in decades. Like I'm so bored, there's nothing to do. Like that's never, if like you, if I mean I have a million things to think about, I can just get a pen and paper and like sketch out the next Curious Fox content, or like figure out, like I'm never gonna have nothing to do like you. That's what you're saying. But I can definitely get stuck doing something that's just like killing my soul, you know?
Yes.
And I'm just like shriveling up inside, and I'm kind of stuck in, like, as I said, it could be a thing, it could be a person, you know, like I'm, you know, I'm connecting with someone and I'm just trying to be nice, and I'm like, you're boring me. And the thing is, I think the difference between you and I have a very low tolerance to that. So it doesn't take much for me to get there. I think you're much more like able to engage for a long time without getting bored. Whereas I'm like, I'm done early, like too early. And I'm like, my brain is going, get me out of here.
Well, it's not, I think I appreciate that. It's not that I don't get bored. It's just that there's something else. I can split myself. I have learned over the years, and we've talked about this, and reintegration is something that I constantly work on. And I have the skill set of being able to split my brain so that half of me is like present, and I can like be faux present really well. Like you know, that's a skill set I got from my mom. Like my mom, you know, people meet her afterwards and be like, oh my God, she's so amazing. She talked and I'll ask them afterwards, like, did you learn anything about her? Like, do you actually know anything about her? And they're like, no, because she's really good at being present for the other person, but you actually learn or know nothing about her as a person. Like she separates herself out. And I can do the same thing where I'm there and I'm like, I'm there, I'm with you. But in my head, there's like a cartoon running. There's like a to-do list. Like I'm watching a movie in my head, but I can still be present to you. It's a skill set like learned from survival that I can pull out every once in a while.
Yeah, no, I definitely, that definitely resonates for me in two ways. I have experienced Jackie in that mode. And also, not to me personally. Okay. Let me think about that though. But I've definitely experienced you with somebody else like that. I'm like, and
it's my representative.
Yes, the avatar. Yeah, same. I always tell people if I look most attentive, that's when I am checked out. Like in meetings, when I used to be in the corporate world, in meetings when I look the most attended, like I'm like the most present person in the room, I'm not listening. I have my like present face on, and I'm like look like you know I'm listening intently. But if you like actually stop me and ask me what's going on, I wouldn't actually know. The times when I'm like doodling, not paying attention, folding something, that's like then I'm like fully listening and focused.
Yes.
And I know that people think that I'm not engaged.
That is so true for me. Yes, I'm thinking that right now. Like right now, we are facing each other on Zoom, but oftentimes I'm not looking at you. I'm looking off in a corner somewhere, or my eyes are closed, and it doesn't look like I'm paying attention. But that is actually when I'm paying attention the most. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my listen. That's my like attentive mode. Looks very inattentive.
Yeah.
I used to get in trouble for this at school all the time.
Right. Yeah, didn't you tell me that you'd be under the table at school and the teacher would try to like catch you and not paying attention?
Yeah, and and she'd be like, "What did I just say?" Or she'd ask me a question. I'm like, "You just said this. What don't you know what you've just said?" And I'd be like under the table coloring and like, coloring while like playing with my hair. And I'm like, this is my most attentive, and I'm like listening to class. To this day, it's like that.
Yeah. I want to be more empathetic because I actually do envy people who are like, I have nothing to do, because there is creativity in boredom. Like boredom breeds creativity. It breeds free thought. I remember being a child and having nothing to do and going outside and inventing this whole world made up of like leaves and twigs that would occupy my time for hours. And because I have such a long to-do list now that I continue to go to, and I do feel guilt when I don't work on those things. I give myself less space for creativity. So I'm going to try to show up with less judgment when someone tells me, because that is my default. My knee-jerk reaction when they're like, I'm bored, is like, oh, I got some stuff for you to do.
For sure.
I want to be like, yay, you're bored. Invite creativity in.
A previous partner of mine was involved in a theater group, and he was forever pissed that their director would schedule in boredom time. Like they would have these meetings, and a part of that meeting was like boredom time. It was like sit around and get scheduled in, sit around and get bored time. And yeah, he was this interesting guy. And
that would drive me crazy.
Thomas would come home. Yeah, Thomas would come and be like, "Gah, drives me crazy." I'm like, I think he's onto something. And the idea was exactly what you said. He would believe that boredom breeds creativity, and he was just wanted to schedule time so that people had nothing to do to get bored.
Yeah,
there's something there. My suggestion, if you're bored, one of the things that I think is a great thing to do is take up sex as a hobby.
I'm laughing, but I really am intrigued by this idea. Like, I have talked about this before on the podcast, that I would love to access sex when I'm like, I'm angry or I'm emotional or I'm bored. Like, I want to leverage sex in those ways. And despite my ongoing commitments to our podcast community to do that, I haven't done that yet. Maybe this will be the episode that transforms me into a sex hobbyist.
It's like sex hobbyist. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, no, I think it's like, this is something that I've been saying for a long time, and I say, this is my regular suggestion to pretty much all my clients, which is to take up sex as a hobby. And I say that because there is a misconception out there that sex is something that happens naturally, and that you kind of know all the things naturally. We're kind of born with the knowledge of how to have great sex, just like it's there pre-installed into our operating system. And that if you don't know, there's something wrong with you, or you think you know, but you're not checking in, or you're not learning anything new. You're kind of stuck in your own thing, and you might even think it's not that much fun. So I feel like the idea that sex is just like, you just know, I think is a big misconception. And I think it's a skill. It's a knowledge base that you can learn and practice and master. And I think it would be so good, it's be so good for yourself, first and foremost. And if you have a partner or multiple partners, it'll just be a great thing to do as a great joint project.
Yes, thank you already on behalf of all your partners for all the years of practice. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think both is true. I recently posted an article for Curious Fox around, the first time lesbian sex and how intimidating that can be if you're a woman who's never had sex with a woman and you want to explore that. And so much of it, honestly, is just being fully present, being fully understanding that if you have sex with one person, you have sex with one person, right? Like, each person's body is different. Their wants, their desires is different. And being completely present to that person and to yourself and communicative creates a beautiful experith. And it's nice to know the human body. It's nice to have a few kind of tricks up your sleeve. And so both those things, both for really naturally being present to yourself and the other, and practice.
Absolutely. And just like anything else, just like learning to play the violin on your way to the Carnegie Hall, practice. Absolutely. And it's not just it's such a broad topic, right? It's like, it's a skill that you can learn on so many levels. Like, first and foremost, communication, right? Like, just to be able to talk about sex is something that you that most of us have to relearn, and both like literally vocabulary, like naming the things, and then also being able to find your own stride with it. You know, like how do you have a conversation around pleasure? Like, what do you like? What do I like? How do you have a conversation around SDIs without being a buzzkill? How do you have conversation around things that you want to learn and things that you don't like, right? How do you like, and how do you do that before, during, and after? You know, like the whole thing, just the communication piece alone is like, you know, one module that you can get into. And this is why I do think of it as like a hobby, right? It's like you kind of learning your way around this thing one bit at a time. And I think it's a bit like learning to cook. You know, you can definitely get by being able to cook your like 3 dishes or like your pot noodles or whatever that you know to cook. That's fine. Like you can feed yourself.
Ramen noodles, scrambled eggs, and cereal.
Like your menu.
Those 3 things got me through several years of college.
Exactly. Like if that's your knowledge base, great. Like that's what you know. But isn't there some, you know, something more interesting that you can get into? Maybe you want to learn some knife skills. Maybe you want to know how to, I know, chop up an onion properly, how to peel a garlic easily. Maybe you want to be able to like how to pick ripe tomatoes, and there's like so much to learn. And it's kind of similar with sex. You know, it's like gotta learn some skills. You gotta learn some like name of things. You gotta learn like what goes with what.
Do you think there's a correlation between people who cook well and people who have sex well?
I think there would be a correlation in the way people think. Like if the person who cooks well and has dedicated their time, energy, effort, focus to cooking, if that person then dedicates the same time, energy, all the things that I've just said to sex, I think somebody who's got that kind of dedication and they point that towards another subject like sex, I think they would be good at it.
That makes sense to me.
That would be my guess. But I don't think like you cook well. It's like people say, oh, if you like people who dance well must be good in bed. Right. I don't.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's something about, first of all, I just need you to pause and you'd be like, nah, that's now. No, but that makes sense because my partner is a very good cook and she cooks for herself well. Like if I'm by myself, I'm either ordering or I'm making scrambled eggs. Like honestly, I'm not making, she will make a full like steak and potatoes and like pudding and like appetite. Like she'll make this whole, and she's very good at sex. And so I'm wondering if there is like the time and energy that she puts into meal preparation is a sign of the way in which she looks at things in life, and sex included. This is like a research paper now that I want to do.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, this is going back to this whole idea of sex as a hobby, right? It sounds like Alexis thinks of food as a bit of a hobby, right? She knows like to cook and she likes to cook a full meal. She's, I'm sure she like chooses her ingredients and decides what she wants to eat. In fact, this is exactly what we're talking about. The way that you're thinking about food and the way Alexis is thinking about food is the difference between somebody who just like has sex or somebody thinks sex is a hobby. No offense to you. No offense to your scrambled eggs.
Actually, no, but we should go into that.
Saying.
No, let's explore that because I do have things to learn and I'm not ashamed in this small community of several thousand people who listen to admit that. And so I'll open up. I'll open up in this group. So it sounds like the first step is, pivoting quickly, it sounds like the first step is just saying that you're going to do this, like deciding this is a hobby that I'm going to explore on my own or with my partner or partners.
Right. Exactly. I think that's really important to say this is now the thing that I'm working on, right? And then you dedicate some time to it, right? That's kind of the natural thing that you do. Like if you are going to, this is your new hobby, you're going to dedicate some time to it. You realize it's going to be a learning curve, right? It's not something that you're going to like, I do this now and I'm the best at it, right? I think those are like nice foundational starts, right? And then you kind of say, you're going to do it sometimes for fun and sometimes for learning and practice and as a new skill.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think, all right, so let's go into this a little bit. I think that there is a difference between you can be naturally good at it and also be good at it as a skill. I think both things are true. So, for example, I have been told that I naturally move well. I think the fact that I can have multiple orgasms almost on command, sometimes without being touched, feels like a party trick for folks. It doesn't intend to be. That's just how my particular body and vulva work. But that also seems like it's a natural gift, if you will. Certainly, I've spent some time curating that gift, but that just comes naturally. And I
just want to put an interlude here that my comparison of Alexis's cooking and your scrambled egg does not translate to sex. I just want to put it out there.
No. It's coming out. No, but this is why I do think this is important. I also have partnered with partners who naturally pay more attention to me. I've partnered with folks who generally have 1 or 2 orgasms during, a multi-hour sexcapade session, and a lot of the time spent is time with me. And so thank you. Thank you, universe, for that. That being said, I do want to get better because as we have noted, this will now be Alexis's favorite podcast episode. She is very good at sex. And
well done, Alexis. Gold star to Alexis. We should give out her Tinder.
No, profile. We should not do that. No,
it's funny.
We are
find her on Instagram. No, I'm sorry. Don't.
But I've often shared with her, I have great gratitude for all of her previous partners. I have often said after a particularly beautiful or hot lovemaking session, like many thanks to all of the people who came before me and all of the, she has put in her 100,000 hours of practice. And it is because she is both fully present, but also knows certainly my body, but a female body, knows what to do, knows what to press, can read the room, if you will. And there's a skill set there. That's not just natural. That's really paying attention. That's learning. That's learning biology. That's learning just how to be present and use her body and use the other person's body to particular ends. And watching her, I've often said, I want to get better at this thing. I want to learn certain tricks, particularly when it comes to things like topping and bottoming from the top. And wait, what's the other? I feel like every few months I text you and I'm like, Effy, what are the things again? And it's often 11 o'clock at night for me. And I'm like, Effy, remind me of all of the words, because I know that those are places where we would like to play more, is to kind of switching our roles and, who's in charge and, me being more dominant, not necessarily dominant to her, but dominant in telling her what to do to me and things like that. And that takes practice.
For sure. Yeah, it takes practice because it also takes practice to know what you like, right?
Yes.
This is it takes practice to be able to communicate that stuff. And then one step before that is to kind of figure out what is it that you like. And to get to a place where I want to play, I want to play with power dynamics and I want to see what it would be like to, tell somebody else to do things to me in a way that's still sexy. And, those are things that just you figure out when you dedicate some time to it. And that it's it's playtime, and I think it's important to go with the natural flow of things, especially if you're naturally gifted, but also spend some time, playtime, dedicated playtime when you're going, okay, let's talk about power dynamics in sex. Let's talk about anatomy. Let me lie down, or let my partner or partners, let's lie down and just go through from head to toe, what feels good, what kind of touch, what kind of stroke, what kind of pressure, where does it feel, besides the obvious stuff. And I think we did a great episode with Jocelyn Silva on the erogenous zones that are not your regular places that you would look, look somewhere else, look behind the curtain. So it's doing that kind of intentional playtime to really learn and also allow that time to be curiosity led and not goal led, goal oriented. Just kind of like discovery and curiosity and fun, and there's no right or wrong, but just exploration and communication, like that kind of very dedicated time as a part of your hobby, and I think it's important to have that space.
We've sometimes dedicated sessions where we say, you in this session, until I say so at some point, you cannot have an orgasm. You cannot come. And those are both like the worst and best ever. Because like the building up of it, like the build up and the build up and the build up without the release is both like, it drives me crazy, but it's also like magic when it finally, when it happens. And so that to me reminds me of that, of like how instead of walking into it with means to an end, and we've talked about this, I think we've talked about this with Stella, with Jessie, with Jocelyn we've talked about it regarding masturbation and also regarding partnered sex, that sometimes you do it just to do it. It's utilitarian, right? You do it to get one out before you can go to sleep. And other times you really want to lean into it and enjoy yourself. And it sounds like making intentional hobby that you can spend some time exploring allows you then to take that time to be curious and to play.
Absolutely. I do think that there is some room for it to be a little bit, the way that we roll, a little nerdy, right? Like having a bit of structure around it. I think if it's a hobby and you're learning new skills, I think the type of time that you described, which is, some fun power dynamics and like saying it's not goal oriented and like, orgasms, those are all really fun play spaces. I think in addition, some like nerdy time, thinking about what is it that you want to know, how are you going to learn it, where are you going to learn it from. A tool that I give to my clients, and anybody can find it. It's on my website, effyblue.com/resources, if you want to like get there fast. So it's effy.blue, like the sky.com/resources. There's a sexploration sheet. It's a bit of a hack from the yes, no, maybe sheet that you will find everywhere else. The yes, no, maybe list is a list of all the things that you can think of that is sort of part of sex, pretty much everything, that list is like hundreds of things. And then the idea is that you say yes, no, maybe. Yes, I like to do that. No, maybe I want to explore. So I wanted to expand on that a little bit and make sure it's something that people can really learn from. I changed the order a little bit. So it's like things that are a little bit more known, and it gets like more and more kinky and more risque and different as you go down the list. And the idea is it's knowledge, experience, and desire. So you 3 columns and you go knowledge. What do you know about it? Like, do you know the skills required for it? Experience. Have you ever done it? Has it ever been done to you? What was it like? And desire. Do you want to do it again? Do you want to try it? Do you want to do it to somebody else? And the idea is that by the time you sort of go through the sheet, you have kind of taken stock of what you already know. And you can do it on your own. You can do it with your partners. It's kind of a fun group exercise, actually. It's like get a couple of glasses of wine or maybe smoke a joint and just like get the list out, and it's fun. And you end up telling stories and sharing notes and learning from one another. So like, it's a really good way to like start all this up and take a bit of stock. But yeah, some of the things you'd be like, yep, I'm really good at this. Like, I know how to drive a penis, or I know my way around the vulva. So like, there's some of the things that you can be like, I know this stuff, and then there'll be like a bunch of other things that you can like. You might find that you're curious about that you hadn't even heard before. So I feel like that's a great place to start. Just like do some homework. Like I'd like to call it fun work. Do some fun work.
Were there any things that you at some point thought to yourself, maybe you were at a play party, maybe you had an experience with a partner, and you're like, oh, I want to get better at that. And so you read the books, or you watched the videos, or you practiced the stuff and you got better at it. Is there like an example that you can think of where you set your mind to it and like thought of it like a hobby and got better?
Yeah, for sure. Finding my way around the vulva was a mission of mine, because I was like, me and mine are BFFs. But I learned quite quickly that not, as you said, not all vulvas are made the same. So yeah, and it's like I was very comfortable and if I say so myself, I can drive. As I said, I can drive a penis. It's fun. I know my way around. I don't really like. I don't know if it was a natural skill. Maybe it's practiced. It's just well practiced. So yeah, and then once I started playing with women, I was like, whoa, I know nothing. And I think I've just felt very precious about it. So I definitely, I was like leaning on my nerdiness and read the books and watched the videos and hung out with Stella Harris, who has an amazing Anatomy of the Vulva workshop that I recommend. It's actually on our Patreon. If you haven't seen it, log in and see it. It's really good.
Yeah, and there's a live demo. So she actually has a live person there who she demonstrates on, and it was a lot. It was good.
It was good. It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
So vulvas is an area of learning for you, and so what was your process? Walk us through going from novice to hobbyist.
I thought you were going to say master. I was like, no. I was going to say hobbyist.
I knew you were going to push back on that.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, I need more practice. Yeah, I mean, definitely like Stella's workshop actually is pretty much how I learned it, which is to kind of go back to the anatomy of it and like learn about the clit. You should know about the clit, people, that it's a separate organ and how it sits in the vulva. And then it was very much like looking at anatomy books and YouTube. I'm a visual learner, so YouTube is my friend, I should say. And sort of like going, okay, so this is mine, this is where mine is, like working on mine essentially. And then so I'm fortunate because I am very fortunate to be in a community of sex nerds. So I can like reach out to a friend who is in my community who I like and get on with and be like, so I'm learning some skills. I kind of need a vulva around. What are you doing tonight? Can we hang out and and especially at that phase of my life when I was like learning this stuff, I was around some cool people who'd be like, sure, let me show you what I know. So that was kind of how I went about it.
See, that feels like a call that most people want to get. I feel like if you're really going to take this on as a hobby, I feel like let your friends and family know, not your family maybe, let your friends and partners know.
Yeah, not your family.
And maybe every once in a while, put out a call and say, I am looking for someone to practice with.
No, totally.
Safely,
consensually, fun. That was it. And then hanging out at play parties, I find that to be actually very, very educational. I think that, no, you can't learn about sex from porn, but you can definitely learn about sex at play parties because it's real sex, real people. Often people who practice this stuff are sex hobbyists. So they have mastered their skills and there's often good communication happening that you can see. So that was another place to kind of really just like visual learning. As I said, like you can only there's only so much on YouTube because of YouTube restrictions, and play parties were definitely where I got my visual cue. So I'm like, oh, okay, this works, this doesn't work. Also, just comparing notes. Like I would compare notes with anybody who would normally play with a person with a vulva. Be like, how about this? Like, how do you do with this? How do you do that? So like comparing notes with other sex nerds. That's definitely my way. Yeah, that's kind of how I learn and practice, And I have to say, I definitely need more practice. I don't come across that many women that I'm attracted to, and when I do, not my friends that I play learn with, that's that's just how I hang out with some of my girlfriends, but someone that I'm really, really attracted to that I want to have passionate.
Some friends get manicures and pedicures. And some people, have vulva play.
Yeah, so
this is the diversity of experience that we get to have.
Exactly. Girlfriends having fun, but I haven't had enough experiences where I'm playing with strangers, if you will, or I should say friends in the making, where I'm learning my way around live, it's actually less about sort of learning playtime, but more about actually we're now in it for reals. I have limited of those experiences. I shouldn't say limited, but in comparison to I'm nerding out right now, or I'm with a friend, or I'm in a group sex environment with like bunch of things happening. And yeah, I think this is the most I've spoken about my sex life on this podcast so far, by the way. Just want to throw it out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think yes, we've since compared my sex to scrambled eggs, and we have revealed your girl hangout days. I know.
Yeah.
This. I'm telling you, this is the one This is the episode. We are nearing our 50th episode, and we are getting more and more comfortable, clearly, with the platform as we get closer to 50.
I'll tell you another skill that I learned. I was very interested in learning, and it's hard to get practice, is pegging. How to drive a strap-on with a guy. Now that is something that I like nerded out on, and I just don't get to practice that enough. That I just want to put that out there. Just saying.
So in the show notes, we're going to put Alexis's Instagram and Tinder. We're going to put a place where people who are interested in pegging, the pegging receiver can reach out. No, that completely. So it reminds me of when I literally reached out to you. This is a true story, and like texted you and was like, talk to me about topping and bottoming, and like what books should I be reading? And because honestly, for me, and you and I have had this conversation, I'm sure on the podcast as well. So much of my life is spent telling people what to do. Is spent strategizing for folks, or as a coach and supporting people through their journey, or as a parent. Like in many cases, I am the adult in the room, if you will. I am the expert in the room, and I'm leading the conversation and leading our next steps. And often sex was a place for me to not have to be in control, to be told what to do, to be in the submissive role, and really loved that space to be able to give up control. And there were times that my partner would say, okay, now I want you to be in control. I want you to tell me what to do. And I want you to, and that was a skill that I had to learn. I'm very good at being bossy. But those two lines did not necessarily cross. And so I leaned on some things that I know. I'm a good storyteller, and that translated well to sex talk. And you and I have talked about this, right? Because you don't talk a lot during sex.
I do not. I talk a lot about sex, not during sex.
Yes, I can recite sexual poetry during sex. Like, I can, depending on if I am the one leading, or if I'm the one, if the focus is on me. If the focus is on me, I'm going to turn everything off in my head, in my mouth, and, and really be present in my body. If I'm taking more control, then I can share some limericks. So I could lean into that. I was able to lean into taking control and telling stories and telling her what I wanted to happen. What I think I needed to learn more about, which I did from reading books and from practice, was when I then have that control, right? When the stage is mine, how do I leverage that in a way to build up energy or to really read her body? And one of the things that I had to learn and now do better was, if I saw that she was enjoying something, I would start to do more of that, but maybe to greater intensity. And as I was reading about topping in particular, one of the things that I learned was you stay on track, essentially. Like if that pace, if that speed, if that level of touch feels good, you keep that as long as possible. And then slowly you escalate that. Right. And that wasn't something for me, I'm going to be honest, that I was doing. At the time, I was like, ooh, you like that? You may like it then even harder and faster. If you like that, let me show you what else I got. And that wasn't actually what I should have been doing. And so I learned and have gotten very good at holding the pace and holding the pressure to the point where then I am being asked and begged to escalate or to go, further deeper, whatever it is. And so that was like a fun little trick. And that really came from reaching out to my community, asking for tips, reading some books, and having some practice.
Yeah, that's a pro tip. If it feels good, don't change it. That's the thing they say. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this is it. Like just learning this stuff, and I'm sure you had fun in the process of learning.
I did have fun. It was good learning. Yeah. See, so I may be a little bit of a hobbyist. I think I'm gonna have to spend some more time on this hobby. I have to think about, when people walk around like they collect stamps or coins and they have a little book. What can I collect? I need some sort of momentum for each of my experiences.
Yeah, down. Look, I will send you the PDF for the sexploration sheet. You can check things off. You love that kind of thing. You should fill it in with your and your make a list of the things next thing that you want to learn and experience, and you can be like, I learned this.
Sex and lists. What? Those are two of my favorite things.
Exactly. And Jackie's like, I just found what I'm doing for the next 3 months, everyone.
That's it. I'm gonna see Alexis next week, and that's it. We're gonna go through the checklist.
That's fine.
One of the things actually that we did that was kind of fun is our good friend Candace created the Tango Kit, and it's like a monthly subscription kit that you can get that has a different theme. And so we did that, and we had one that was around, I think it was domination. There was another one that was maybe just around like play. She has one that focuses on folks who are, healing from sexual trauma and really trying to ease back into sexual play. And just having like a different themed experience. Like there are times where you say, I'm in the mood for Chinese food tonight, or I'm in the mood for Mexican, or let's order some Italian. Like, I think that there's also something about like, I'm in the mood for some bondage play tonight. How do you feel about that? I'm in the mood for some role play.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. I think that's so important. And you only do that if you know what's on the menu. Like how do you pick for two ways, right? How do you order food? You either know what you like and you order it, or you go on Seamless or some other website, then you look at the menu of things, or you want to order somewhere, you see a menu of things and you get inspired. It's the same idea. Like the more you know about sex, the more you get to do things like that. Let's try this tonight. Let's try that tonight. And you don't have to love it. Like the idea isn't that once you've tried it, now you have to do it forever. The idea is that you dedicate some time to try out some things that really comes from your inner sexual expression, because I do think that your sexual expression is a part of your self-expression. And if and by the way, I want to just we had a lot of fun, and this topic is fun, and we have more fun things to share with you. But I do want to take like a second to say, if this is not how you feel, right? If you're like, I don't know, this isn't really speaking to me, that's also a-okay. Like there are some people who don't necessarily find that sex is not a part of their self-expression. And that's okay. Everybody has a different sex drive. Everybody has different interests. Let's labor this food analogy, right? Not everybody likes to try all the different foods from all the way around the world. Not everybody is always hungry. Not everybody is like always, wanting to learn the latest cooking thing. So if what we're saying isn't speaking to you, there's nothing wrong with you. It's okay. This is for people who enjoy sex and they do have a sex drive, and that they do have partners, or they're on their own and they like sex, they want to learn about it and they don't know how, and they haven't really thought about really thinking about sex as a skill that you can learn, that it's knowledge base that you can explore. So this is really what we're talking about. If you're like, I don't know, sex is I can take it or leave it. Sure, there are plenty of people like that, and that's okay. That's all I wanted to say. It's all right, but it's true.
Yeah. To your point, and I've talked a little bit about this, I have different relationships with my different partners. Certainly that's true. And that includes like sexual energy. And so with Alexis, we do play a lot, and we, consider in some ways sex to be a hobby and sex to be a way in which we explore our love. And with my wife, it's much more of an emotional connection. And we've been together for almost a decade and have spent a lot of time building a life together. And that's not as important in our relationship. And so both of those things are valuable. Both of those things are valuable relationships, valuable experiences. And so I do think that not only is it about some people may not need sexuality as a part of their self-expression, and that's okay, but some relationships may not need sexuality as a part of it, and that's okay.
For sure. That's okay too. This is really, one of the reasons why I wanted to explore this topic is to just put it on the table as a thing, right? So decide is sex something that you're interested in, right? If not, great. No problem. Is there room for sex in your relationship? If not, great. If everyone's thriving, everyone's happy, it's not a point of contention, great. If you're in a situation where, as an individual or within a relationship, you're stuck, you're bored, you feel that you might, you have some insecurities. You feel like you're worried that you're not good enough. You're plagued by all the things that I just said. This is really a call to you to say, you can make a difference. Not everyone's good at sex naturally. It's a skill you can learn. There's a ton of information, and you can make a difference. And if you find yourself in a long-term relationship where you used to have great sex and you no longer have it, and it's not, that you don't love that, you no longer have sex. Honestly, taking up sex as a hobby, within the relationship or relationships, it's whatever the configuration that you have available to you, without any pressure to have sex, but just to have sex as a topic that you connect over, might actually get you out of your rut, or might get you to reconnect, and might get you to find some inspiration to do things that, you're no longer bored about. And so that's really what this is about.
Yeah. And to your point, there's some tools that can help people on their journey. There's the resource that you shared that's on effyblue.com/resources. There is, if you go back to our episode with Jessie Fresh and talk about either sex for folks who are sensitive or the sexual blueprint, those were some amazing resources. If you're a Patreon member, then you can see our videos where we did she did a presentation about those things, and she talks through more detail. So there are resources that you can read, that you can listen to, that you can watch, that you can attend, so that you can learn from whatever your learning style is. You can learn what your sexual style is, what the sexual style of your partner is, what are your turn-ons, what can you get really good at, and do that. I think, from a learning place, focus on some things that you are naturally really good at, so you don't feel like a novice at everything. And maybe the call to action is to implement something new every week, to try a little something new, a new activity, a new strategy. And if it doesn't work, then you laugh together and you show up with gratitude for each other or whoever's in the room for trying to learn and grow and have fun together.
And there are ways to do that, I think spot on what you're saying. Figure out how you naturally learn, right? Are you somebody who reads? Are you somebody who watches things? Are you somebody who listens to things, right? We definitely have a ton of resources within the Curious Fox, universe, be it Patreon, be it our blogs. Always invite you to explore those and explore beyond. Of course, explore beyond. If you are a reader, you learn from books, you learn from reading. There's some great books out there. Figure out what kind of book you like, right? There's some great, very practical books, and there's some great sort of detailed books. So figure out which one of those speak to you. And I also thoroughly recommend finding a couple of sex educators that you like and following them. There are a bajillion of them around. If you go to our Instagram feed, the Curious Fox Instagram feed, you'll see we recommended a whole bunch of them along the way, and we will continue to recommend people that we like. And there are so many good ones around. So pick a couple that you like, and there are ways to pick them. They're if you just search for them, you'll find so many great sex educators. They're definitely the ones that we would call friends of the Fox, and we stand by those people. We love them. We learn from them ourselves. And there are billions out there, and you can find them. You can find them on Instagram. Just search for the hashtag sexed. And here's what I recommend in choosing your sex educators. First of all, do look at their reviews and how many followers they have and that kind of thing, to make sure they're kind of legit. You do want to learn from a good resource. And then I would pick people that really speak to you, like they speak to your gender, your orientation, your sexual expression, your style, your identity, whatever that really resonates with you. And there's such an array of them, right? So, for example, if you think you're kinky, if you want to explore kink, there are educators that really focus on that. For example, a couple of episodes ago, we spoke to DeAndrea Blaylock Johnson, who focused on Christianity and sexuality, right? So if you're somebody who's religious and you want to explore sexuality, find somebody who speaks to that, right? So you find the person that is really speaking to you and the closest to you and your expression, and pick a couple of people that are not speaking to you exactly, just so that you have variation in your noise. That's just a good backup to, just see other perspectives, to other styles, just so that you have that nice variety in your noise. And, if whatever they're saying if it doesn't feel good, then don't do it. If it feels interesting, but if it doesn't feel good when you're sort of following what they're saying or sort of trying it, then just check the information against some other resources, some other educators, to make sure that, one, that they kind of explained it well, and two, that you really got it well. So those would be like my two recommendations if you're following a sex educator. So like put sex, the nerdiness around sex, into your noise, be it social media, be it your podcasts, be it your articles that you read, be it your library in your house. Just throw it in there. Throw some resources in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you can get better at it. It's fun. We're good at some things we're good at naturally. Some things we have to learn. And, you know, for those of you who get bored, clearly that's not me. But for those of you...
Now you're never going to get bored. Like if you had any little, you know, chance that you might have been bored, that's now no longer exist ever till eternity.
I know. Well, but what I will do though is make some dedicated time. So I have been, you know, I was away for a week and then it was the holidays and I was working. And so we've talked about like spending a weekend in bed and just like knowing that we're going to order in all meals and that we are not going to leave the bedroom, or maybe leave the bedroom on purpose, but that the sexcapades will continue. But the point is that I will take some dedicated time to just be in that space, be in that mental space, be in that emotional space, in that physical space. And this conversation is well timed because I think I'm going to introduce some new tricks. Maybe I'm going to read some new books. Maybe I'm going to follow a few educators before this weekend, and let's see what happens. Let's see. Maybe I'll make a different kind of eggs this weekend. Maybe there'll be some poached eggs on the menu. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe some hollandaise sauce. Who knows?
Nice.
We have decided that every once in a while we were going to have a soapbox moment. Mm-hmm. This was really came out of the fact that there are several things that annoy us. And we just wanted more platforms in which to share our annoyances with the world. And because it's our podcast, we can do that. And so I have a soapbox moment. It sounds like you do too.
I do now.
We've been talking about sex and we're talking about how amazing it is. And I think I've shared also on the podcast before that I spend the majority of my adult life with men, and then probably about 7 years ago, started sleeping with women, and my life was transformed. So recommend that. I remember we had the episode with Christina Hutchinson, and by the end of it, I was really trying to convince her just to have some lesbian sex. But it is pretty amazing. But one thing, and there's only one thing I think that I do not love about sleeping with women, but one thing that I do not love is the fact that I have to cut my nails.
Yeah.
And I know that this is something I imagine, I don't know if this will create controversy at all because I don't mean it to. I just have really beautiful nails. They grow very quickly. They're very strong. They don't chip. Like I love my hands with long nails. Like right now, literally as we speak, I'm holding out my hand and looking at my nails because I was on vacation and not with my partner. And so I could let them grow, and they're pretty long and they look beautiful. And before I go see her and go home, I'm going to have to cut my nails. Boo. And that feels really disappointing. Mm-hmm. And I know you don't seem empathetic. That boo felt real big, Effy Blue.
Boo you.
No, let me say, I love my partner very much. I do this because, you know, safety and comfort are important in a sexual experience. And so, yes. But if it was up to me, I would have some long nails. And I've seen the women who have long nails, except like 2 of their fingers are short. And I've really considered that. But it's like my last soapbox about being pansexual and people like asking too many questions. I just am not into that. So I'm not interested in people asking me like if my nails broke or like what's going on with my nails. And so I just do not want to invite that level of conversation. So I will keep them short. But for now, I'm just going to gaze upon my long and beautiful nails for as long as possible. We have been like in the midst of play and she's like, did you cut your nails? And I'm like, no. And then I have to like stop and go to the bathroom and go cut and file my nails. That is the level of resistance that I have. It's terrible and I love her and I should do better. But that's my soapbox. I am annoyed. Someday I will figure out, we can do lots of things. We can send men and women on the moon. Apparently, sometimes when we send women into space, we send them with 100 tampons.
I saw that and then ask them if it's enough for 6 days. that's crazy
so
to me.
We can send women with hundreds of tampons out into space. Hopefully, we can figure out a way to have some, safe and enjoyable sex without cutting my long and beautiful nails. That's my soapbox moment.
Noted. No, I get it. I do actually, during the play party etiquette workshop, I do tell people to, if it's possible, to cut their nails because it is like the safer, kinder, easier thing to do. But I do agree that you do have beautiful nails and I am sorry you have to cut them. I am sorry you have to cut them.
You don't seem that sorry. I gotta tell you, you really don't seem that sorry.
I'm not like devastated. I'm not that devastated. I'm more like sorry for you.
You're like, oh, you have to cut your nails so you can have great sex. So I'm so sorry that has to happen for you. Yes, very small price to pay.
Exactly. No, I am. How about this? I am sympathetic, and I'm moving on. I paused. I sympathize. I've moved on,
and we moved on.
Your feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid. All the feelings are valid.
My feelings and my nails are valid.
Your nails are valid.
So, Effy, tell us about the bedroom, Effy Blue.
My soapbox moment. Taking a breath here. I do have a giant, enormous, like Godzilla-size gripe with people using the bedroom as a euphemism for sex. And like it's to me, it's wrong on so many levels. It's like, one, why are you putting it in the bedroom? Especially people are like, oh, do this to spice up the bedroom. Do you know what you can do to spice up the bedroom? Leave the fucking bedroom is what you can do. So I'm just saying, you don't need to be in the bedroom. Do it everywhere. Do it in the living room. Do it in the kitchen table. Do it in the bathroom. Do it wherever you want. And call it sex. Call it fucking. Call it making love. Call it whatever it is. Don't put it under some euphemism. Calling it the bedroom. Sex happens wherever you can, as long as it's safe and consensual and you're not hurting anybody else. You're not, like putting it in public unless people want it. So that annoys me. It annoys me when we're saying skills for the bedroom or tricks for the bedroom. It's just like, no, it's sex. Call it what it is. Have fun. Thank you for listening to my soapbox.
Oh, I love it so much.
I can do this all day.
I love when you get mad. I don't know why. It makes me so happy when you're mad.
It's just like certain things I'm like, I know. I work hard at being objective, being open-minded, like seeing things like my kink is not your kink and your kink is okay. Like I can, I work with people all day long and like I hear all types of stories, all type of desires, all different kinks, points of view, all the things, and I'm so good at like everything is okay. And then every now and then I'm like, it's not okay. It's just not okay. No.
I enjoy you.
So I am containing those moments to the soapbox. Thank you for listening.
If you want more of these outbursts of rage, if you want to know how my eggs turned out, if you want Effy to get angry, then you should follow us on social media. You can find us everywhere at We Are Curious Foxes. You should go to Instagram right now. You should click on that blue follow button. You should share some stuff. You should comment on some things. Just do all the things. We're here to explore. We're here to be curious. So you can be curious by doing that. You can go onto Facebook and join our Facebook group, and you can continue the conversation there. You can find us on Patreon. We've mentioned a few times that on Patreon, you can access all of the videos of our past events, both our post-quarantine Zoom events and our pre-quarantine live events. We have all of those there on Patreon for you. We are also doing some content that is specifically for patrons. And so we are doing some mini podcast episodes, some director's cut and extra features from our podcast. We are having exclusive events once a month for our patrons. So go onto Patreon, support us there. It really makes a huge difference. This is a community organization. This is not our full-time job. We do this because it is needed. And so we want to hear from you. And we also would love to hear anything that you would love us to explore on this podcast. So on December 18th, we are going to have a podcast episode dedicated to answering your questions. We get tons of questions via DMs, via email, and we are going to now dedicate an episode just to answering your questions. If you want your question answered, then there's a few ways that you can do it. You can take a voice memo and you can email it to us at listening@wearecuriousfoxes.com. So use that little voice memo app on your phone, email it to us at listening@wearecuriousfoxes, or you can record your question by calling us at 201-870-0063. If you record a question and send it to us, then hopefully we can play it and answer your question on our December 18th podcast episode.
This episode is produced and edited by the talented and very patient Nina Bullock, who makes us sound so much better than we actually are. Our intro music is composed by Dave Saha. We are so grateful for their work. And we are grateful for you for listening. And as always, stay curious, friends. Curious Fox Podcast is not and will never be the final word on any topic. We solely aim to encourage curiosity and provide a space for exploration through connection and story. We encourage you to listen with an open and curious mind, and we'll look forward to your feedback. Stay curious, friends.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.